I cannot believe my eyes. I cannot believe my eyes.
You thought it was over.
Alright, so I'm going to talk about Fire Force, but first I'm going to talk about Soul Eater because it's by the same guy. Its anime got international popularity because it was really fucking good and just a little different from other shonen at the time. The art style was just so unique and still is to this day. Part of what I feel like makes it a classic. There are these kids who are deep in this dark fantasy setting and they face typical problems that come with the growing pains of adolescence. One has daddy issues, delusions of grandeur, one has a crippling mental disorder, and one's really obsessed with his self-image. The thing is, when you make something like Soul Eater, when you create anything, if you perform, at the end of it you're always just going to be remembered for your prime. And when you're talking the prime of someone's career, people are generally speaking a balance of your fame, productivity, and quality of your work. And that's especially true for Atsushi Okubo, who played one of the dads on Full House. Anyways, that's why when I first heard about Fire Force, early on in the manga, I simply wasn't ready. And I just wasn't happy with the way Soul Eater anime or manga finished. Soul Eater Not was just abusive, but I said, hey, I'll stop being a fucking loser and try to appreciate something for what it is, even though it's not as good as what I grew up with. So I did, and it's aight. It's really just a nice spin on the demon hunting, soul reapering, exorcist story archetype. The bones aren't really anything groundbreaking, but the further I went in, the concept of things like the Fire Force, the different focus, methods, and ideology of the different companies, and you throw in an antagonist organization like the White Clad, whose goal is to pretty much watch the world burn. I got sucked in, I cannot even lie. Of course I'm gonna spoil some shit, but I don't want to break anything down that much, because I really think anyone watching this who hasn't watched Fire Force should watch it. I'm going to give my critiques of earlier in the season, but right now the season is wrapping up with a really solid arc, and I have a feeling Shinra vs. Sho is going to be my anime fight of the year. We all know Fire Force looks amazing. It's a series that was saved by David and turned into a really enjoyable shonen anime. It was hyped heavily earlier in the season, only for a lot of people to drop it, which I understand some of the criticism, because if it didn't blow me away with the visuals like it did early on, then I probably wouldn't have gotten into it at all. Like, I'm not going to sit here and bitch about a generic NC, because I'm already deep in here, but every time Shinra says he wants to be a hero, it gives me fucking heartburn. But still, Okubo has put together another quirky cast of characters I'd put up against anyone in Shonen Jump, One Piece excluded. But Obi goes hard, but not having any powers, I like how Obi doesn't go too hard. Like, if Shinra is the glass cannon, then Obi is just the tank. Regardless, seeing him go toe-to-toe with Benimaru was easily my favorite part of the series until they got to the Nether. Fire Force does a lot of great things. I just face palm a lot watching this show. One moment that's a perfect example of everything I love and hate about this series is when Arthur is getting bodied when they're fighting against Company 5 because he doesn't notice his sword isn't in his dominant hand. That's hilarious because that's objectively bad writing and not how you want to do an action scene at all, especially in an arc that's just not good. I still think this moment is lazy, but it's brilliant in the way it accentuates Arthur's character. Arthur may be dumber than we realize. What I have no defense for is how Okubo ruined Tamaki's best moment. I do not actively complain about Fire Force fan service, but the people who do...
Dude! What the fuck?
But back to Company 5, that shit's a hot mess. Shinra literally rocks Hibana's shit, dribbles some nonsense, and she just becomes a good guy. Like, what the f?
The analytical part of me wants to examine it. But I know it has no content.
Like, she must have a concussion. Also, Iris honestly feels so shoehorned into the arc just so Shinra could save a girl with torn clothes. I'm just saying. And in the next arc, Shinra shows up at the last second to save a girl with torn clothes. Like, what? Most of the arcs climax with Shinra showing up at the last moment to save someone. And arcs that could be explored further just resolve so quickly. It's like Okubo was rushing to get to the good parts of the series he had planned. But what I feel like Fire Force truly does better than Soul Eater is Fire Force is a more focused series. Company 8 is trying to get to the bottom of what's causing human combustion. From the beginning, it's not confused, it knows exactly what to do and what story it wants to tell. It's an objective that constantly keeps the plot moving and it keeps me invested. As the series progressed, it started to do a better job of actually creating tension and building suspense. And I'm going to mention the Nether again because it's done a great job at both of those things. An arc that's greatly increased my appreciation for the series. The Fire Force anime is good enough to hook me and have me excited for a second season because it's done so well. The manga, on the other hand, just doesn't speak to me. Maybe Okubo has been taking inspiration from his many conversations with Fairy Tail creator Hiro Mashima, a man who just does what works. And if you can feed people shit, they'll be pleasantly surprised when they get a few peanuts in there.